The strongest player I'd say on the pitch is the goal attack. I'd say she's in the associative phase of learning, as she's using some trial and error when she makes mistakes, but most of her basic skills are consistent and fluent, and she's getting a lot of her feedback from extrinsic sources such as her teacher. Some of her feedback is coming from internal factors, as she's able to know where some things are going wrong in her basic skills such as her passing. She's able to identify where she's going wrong. Her main skill strength would be her chest pass. This is because the trajectory is flat, which means it's harder for the defence to intercept it, and when they do try to intercept it they can only get a tip to it, so they're not fully getting turning over the ball. As well as this, it's accurate and it's landing at her player's chest height and not too high or too low, which means they don't have to adapt to try and get the ball back and then try and give it off quickly. She's following the perfect model or technical model for the chest pass, which in preparation phase would be feet shoulder width apart with slight flexion in the knee by the bicep femoris, semitendinosus, semimembranosus. Her hands would be abducted by the deltoids at chest height, and there'll be flexion in the elbow by the bicep brachii. Her hands would be in a W shape behind the ball for accuracy. Then through to the execution phase, she'll step forward with her non-dominant foot to create the power. Her arms would then become fully extended by the tricep brachii. And then through to the result and recovery, she would rebalance herself and transfer her weight forward. She'll be fully extended by this point, facing towards her target, and she would get into a new space ready to receive the next ball. The overall efficiency of her pass was good, and it was very high as there was minimal effort going into it, but the outcome was very good and accurate. Other strengths of the goal attack was her actual dodging, as she was able to get free from her player a majority of the times, as she was using a variety of dodges like single feint, double feint. She was rolling off her player as well. Another skill strength of the goal attack was her actual marking of the ball, as she was using the windmill technique, which would be getting one hand over the ball and one hand in the space, marking the space, so it cuts down the amount of space that the performer's got to throw the ball in, so the likely chances that she'll be able to get the interception. A tactical strength of the goal attack was her driving in, as she knew that her player wasn't as experienced as her, so when she's got the centre pass, she would then give it and then drive straight into the circle to receive a long ball over. As well as this, when there was a back line to the defence, she would double mark a player. She'll double mark the goal defence with the goal shooter, or she'll double mark on the wing defence. So it makes them less likely to get the ball, so it's cutting out a player for the other team to pass to, so it's likely chance that they'll get a turnover. Another technical strength of the goal attack was her blocking, which again was a defensive backline. She would push her goal defence, she would deny the space, so she got her into a space that she would want her to be in, so the likely chance was that she would get the interception. Her main fitness strength was her aerobic capacity. She was able to keep going for the whole duration of the match, and her passing didn't deteriorate. Also, her agility was very good, as this was shown in her dodging, as she was able to get free every time from her opponent. And lastly, her muscular endurance was good, as again, like the aerobic capacity, her passing didn't deteriorate, which means she could use the triceps and biceps over and repeatedly without the passes weakening. Her main skill weakness was her shooting. This was because it wasn't so much that the shots weren't going in, it was mainly because she wasn't using the actual technique that she should be using, and had she used this technique, maybe all of her shots would have gone in. In the preparation phase, she should have had the ball on her dominant hand should be on the base of the ball with the non-dominant hand on the side to support. They should be abducted above her head with flexion in her elbow caused by the bicep brachii. There should be some flexion in her knees caused by the bicep femoris, semitendinosus, semimembranosus. And through to the execution phase, she should be fully extended by the tricep brachii. Her legs should be fully extended by this point by the rectus femoris and the three vastus. and she should obviously be facing towards the target, which in this case was the post. In her execution phase, she would extend but not extend fully, which didn't give her the power from her legs and her arms to fully push up, which is why sometimes she would undershoot. Through to the result and recovery, she would be fully extended by the end of it, but when she missed a shot, she wouldn't necessarily go in for the rebound, which meant the ball was turned over. Whereas if she'd gone in for the rebound, the likely chance was that she would get the rebound and have another chance to shoot. Other skill weaknesses, I would say, was her shoulder pass, is this lacked power, as she couldn't get the power over the longer distance, which is when the shoulder pass should be used. Another skill weakness of the goal attack would be her actual man-to-man marking, as when it was the defence had the ball, she would be man-to-man marking them, but she'll be leaving too much room, which meant that they could easily get away and she wouldn't necessarily know where they were going, or they would give the over ball to the goal defence and she wouldn't be close enough to try and intercept it. Some tactical weaknesses of the goal attack was that when she was in the circle, she often didn't hold her space, which meant the goal defence could easily get around her. Whereas if she'd held her space in the circle, the wing attack or centre could have given the over ball, so she'd be holding her space underneath the post, so it'd be an easier shot for her. As well as this, when she was around the circle, she sometimes had to go for the long shots, whereas she could have done triangles with her goal shooter, where she'd pass it out to her centre and the centre would pass it back to the goal shooter, which might be closer to the post, or she could just simply pass it out to the centre, got closer, and then the centre could have given it back to her, so then again she would be closer to the post. Through to her main fitness weaknesses, I would say, was her actual speed. When you could see this when she was dodging, she would do a good dodge, but then she wasn't able to actually sprint away from her partner, which meant her partner would sometimes catch up and intercept the ball. As well as this, her power wasn't as good as it could be, and you could see this in her shoulder passes, when she wouldn't, the trajectory would be going too high, and often this was an easy ball to intercept for the defenders. If I was to create an action plan for the goal attack, I would choose to create it on her shooting. This is because even if her fitness is really good and her tactics is really good, if she can't shoot, then that's going to be a problem for the team, even if she can keep going for the whole duration. I would create a 6 weeks training programme, and this will be a mesocycle split up into microcycles. It will be 6 weeks long, so it's long enough for her to make the correct adaptations, but it's not too long, so she won't be getting bored. Throughout these 6 weeks, I'll be varying the practice in progressive overloading them as well, make sure they're getting harder so she is adapting. The practices will have to vary so she doesn't get bored, and also so she can move on to the next drill and actually improve. Some of the practice I would start off with her without a ball, so just getting the feel of the skill, getting the kinestheses, and just simply putting her hands up above and just bending and flicking the whole time until she gets the correct action. I would then bring in a ball, so she's doing it with a ball, which is again more realistic because in a game you would play with a ball. And then once she's got this, I'll then move her on to bringing in a post and actually having something for her to aim for, but just do it around the post, so not too far out just yet. Once she's done this a few times and you can see she's getting some shots in with the correct technique, I would move around 8 cones around the D, so they're in different spaces, because in a game of netball she wouldn't necessarily be shooting just underneath the post. She'd have to shoot from different areas around the D as well. So I'd put around 5 or 6 cones out from different places, and then she wouldn't be able to move on to the next cone until she's got it in from that cone. Once she's done this, I'll bring in a defender, so she's got someone to mark her, which again is more realistic, as she'll be having in her match, she'll be playing against a goal defence who would be marking her shot. This will put more pressure on her when she's shooting, so she would have to use the correct technique in order to get height on the ball and the accuracy. The next progressive drill, I would get her to drive out of the circle, have a feeder on top of the circle, and allow her to drive back in. So it's a running ball, and then she's got to shoot, which again is more realistic, as this is involved in a lot of her players. As a goal attack, she will be driving into the circle. The next drill I'll do is I'll put her into a half court game, but make it so as the goal shooter, play her as goal attack, but the goal shooter gets 1 point for shooting, the goal attack gets 2, so the likely chance is that her teammates will want her to shoot more, and it puts pressure on her and makes her use the correct technique. The last drill I would do is I would put her into a full court game but take out the goal shooter, so she's the only player that can shoot, so it will make her practice again using the correct technique. Throughout the programme, I would start off by doing 2 sessions a week, to, by the end of the 6 weeks, progressing this to 4 sessions a week, so overloading the performer, so make sure that she's actually adapting to her shooting. As well as this, the time that she's doing it for might change as well. So at the start she might be doing her sessions for an hour, whereas at the end it might get up to an hour and a half, even maybe 2 hours, to make sure she's doing as much as she can.